Welcome one and all to another edition of the Defo Show with Lubie here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, brought to you by Water Cleanup of Florida. It is, I guess it's rainy season. I mean, it hasn't rained too much just yet, but we have had some heavy rains. We've seen out east in the southern Broward area get hit hard. We've seen a lot of homes with damage. Do not get caught in that situation with nowhere to turn to. Water Cleanup of Florida is your place to go if you have any water or fire damage to your home or office. 954-579-0356. I've said it a lot. With over 60 years of combined experience between Michael, Robert, George, their entire team. On top of that, I actually dealt with them directly, and they were amazing to work with when it came to my home. They'll treat you the same way. Plus, with licensed, insured, certified contractors, they will not only get the job done, they'll make you look brand new. Just call them 954-579-0356, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Reach out to them, and they'll help you out. You can also check them out on their website, WCUFL.com. Check them out on the socials at Water Cleanup FL. And also on Google with over 85-star reviews. If you have the schmutz, Water Cleanup of Florida has the guts. We've seen the Miami Heat. We've seen the Florida Panthers have a lot more guts than people thought they'd have. Up and down regular seasons, leading to 8th seeded spots heading into the playoffs. Both now reside in the Final Four in each of their sports. We talked about that with one of the prominent, if not the preeminent, sports columnist of South Florida, Mr. Dave Hyde today. Check that out right here, the Defo Show with Lubie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Summarily dismissed the Miami Heat by virtually everybody. I mean, are they in there with that little of a chance, Lubie? Have they been that unimpressive? I know you believe they've been compromised here. I mean, you would have to say, could they use another source of scoring? Because this is the other thing about role players especially, and guys that you haven't seen that you can count on night in and night out for the kind of consistent contribution that they were giving against the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, that's not the nature of the beast with these guys.
That's the
problem. Gabe Vincents and the Caleb Martins. I mean, they are good players, yes. Can they play a vital supporting role in many situations? Yes. Are they capable of even carrying a team briefly in spots? Yes. But can they do it consistently? It's like we say about this business, Louie, right? Guy'd come in and on a Monday and he would do a great show, a new guy. And you would say, that's great, right? And people would think, this is really easy. But he had been rehearsing that show in his head his entire life.
Exactly.
Now you get to day 2, and it's 6 o'clock in the morning, and really nothing transpired of any great significance the previous night. So you can't just sit there and go, hey, you know what? If the Dolphins had an offensive line, and, people aren't calling into these kind of shows anymore. And then the guy realizes, I have to come back and do this every day at the same level. It's not as easy as it may appear. And, a lot of people just can't do it. That they so-called shoot their load in game number 1. And you see that, I mean, with athletes that aren't as steady and persistent in making those kind of contributions. And that's been your big complaint, Lubie. Your big complaint about the Miami Heat so far.
Well, it's just we saw them do it. Look, again, and it's when Julian was raving about the Knicks' balance. It's about the stars, especially basketball. But as we saw with the Suns, it helps to have some depth. Look, so that's why a team like the Nuggets, to me, is the scariest team right now, because they have both. They have the best player in basketball, who's an unselfish guy but can't take over and has no problem taking over. They have a guy who can lead with Jamal Murray. They have a guy in Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. who can score if they need to. But they also have depth as well. And Michael Malone's done a really good job handling them when they're healthy. It's just they've had a lot of injury issues. The problem for the Heat is everyone seems, at least 4 of their top 6 guys seem to be really hurt. And that is a problem when your depth has been inconsistent. Like Vincent, Martin, and Love really showed a lot in that first round series. And that's probably why the Heat were able to win in 5. And then they sucked in the second round. So, like, the Celtics tertiary guys, they have enough of them where they usually get the 2 or 3 guys they need to help, between White and Williams and Robert Williams, the big, and Smart. And like all these guys, Brogdon they brought in, they have enough guys where 3 guys can suck because at least 2 are going to do it. He only have really 3. And they can't afford for 3 to suck.
All right.
So we'll
Let's
see.
bring on a guy who, has this thing, really under wraps in terms of analysis and, theories about what's going to happen. And I would imagine, it has to be in celebration, wild celebration every day. We welcome the outstanding columnist, a preeminent columnist here in South Florida right now from the Sun Sentinel. Been doing it for a long, long time, and he's back and forth. In fact, because of the nature of the newspaper business, he is the beat writer for both the Heat and the Florida Panthers right now. I mean, I don't know. Is Winterman still around, Dave Hyde? What's going on with Winterman? How's he doing?
Ira is the quintessential voice of the Heat right now.
Yes.
Certainly for the Sun Sentinel, and as he has been since the first dribble, pretty much, of the Heat. So, but I go back from winter to winter. It's a great thing right now in my life. I've never quite had this, where every day I'm talking about winning and success and surprise and the next round. This is tremendous considering the last two decades, other than the Heat, have pretty been much Mount Trashmore in South Florida sports. So this is tremendous to have this little run here.
It's become a little more glamorous with a little more sparkle to it because neither team was really expected to do anything. Not that you can always go by expectations, but certainly buried as eighth seeds in their respective sports and coming into the postseason. You would have thought, if they win one round, it would be remarkable. And obviously that was going to be a very difficult challenge with the two best teams that they went against, Milwaukee and, of course, the Boston Bruins. All right, as we're now on let's go back to Friday night. I know it seems like a century ago, but and we've been talking about this great season of South Florida winter sports with the two teams in the Final Four, and now this. Two teams clinching conference finals berths on the same night, obviously unprecedented. And is there anything that we can compare that to so far? I mean, I know there's still a long way to go with two series to win the championship, but it seemed pretty amazing to me. I mean, in the 42 years I've been here, Dave Hyde, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it.
Did you ever have a menage a trois, Defo? I mean,
I've had all kinds of experiences. Yeah. I mean, I was at Woodstock.
He did some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
The great thing was it not just happened the same night, but it happened within a half hour of each other. Eric Spoelstra was in his press conference when Nick Cousins scored the winning goal for the Panthers in overtime in Toronto.
Oh, really? We lost Dave Hyde right in the middle of all of that. Man, this has been a little bit wild so far today. Anyway,
I'll call him right back.
Yeah. See if we can reconnect with Dave Hyde because we wanted to get his thoughts on a lot of different things regarding this. And it was I mean, pretty. I'm trying to think if there was ever anything even close to that. The menage a trois thing, it depends on the other two people. In this case, it was just a joyous occasion as we're looking at closeouts that had it gone past that point, all of a sudden it would have been time maybe to start, injecting some sedatives into the South Florida fan base. All right, we back with Dave Hyde? Yes, we're back with Dave Hyde. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. Okay. You were saying, Dave, I mean, as far as, nights of achievement, South Florida sports history or days of achievement, nothing quite like it, huh?
Yeah, Eric Spoelstra was sitting there with a paper cup of some undefinable drink. He wouldn't define it when asked. And I wanted everybody deserves some of that night. Whatever he was having, give all of us that because it was a night you're not going to have. And, overlapping series wins that put them into the finals of their conferences and their respective sports. And for the Heat, this is their I think 7th time in 13 years they've been to the Eastern Conference Finals. And as I wrote, it's like the movie Twins with Schwarzenegger and DeVito. The Heat are Schwarzenegger. They're the big team that's been there around, and you look at them and say, okay, this is what they do. Even if it's a surprise this time, this is what they're defined by, getting to making runs in the spring, with their 3 titles and now 10 conference finals. And the Heat are Danny DeVito, the team that hadn't done anything in a quarter century, really. And since 96, any record they have for playoffs, it's always at the end that happened in 1996. We're going back 27 years. So the fact they did it together, It was a fun night.
All right, a lot of different storylines to pursue here. Let's get into the Heat and the Celtics first. Celtics prevail after they were down 3-2 to the Philadelphia 76ers. James Harden does his usual vanishing act. Embiid has a lousy ball game. Doc Rivers' tenure comes into question. I always love the obits that are written on teams and the autopsies taking place after they bow out of the playoffs. They were in a reasonably commanding position. They're up 3-2, and with a home game, Boston finds a way to win that and then annihilates them in the second half of game number 7. Heat and Boston, very familiar foes in these spots. 3 out of the last 4 years that they've met in the Eastern Conference Finals. How would you size this up? Almost everybody that I've seen, Dave Hyde, is picking the Celtics to win this series.
Yeah, look, if you're going by talent, and that's what usually wins in sports, and especially in the NBA, the Celtics have more talent. If you're going by who's the tougher team, the Heat are the tougher team. I mean, look at it. Compare the Heat to what Philadelphia just went through. This is the most ridiculous franchise in the NBA by my. They did trust the process, tanking, and they just have coddled these players like Joel Embiid. He's out of shape. He gets hurt. They withered it at 6 and 7 in that series, game 6 and 7 in that series, because they're just not mentally tough. Could you imagine if Embiid had come to the Heat, what a different player he would have been? First of all, he'd be in shape. Yes. Okay, he's not gonna get winded at the end of the games and not run up and down the court. He's not gonna get hurt because he's out of shape. Okay, so you talk about where guys go to different franchises really defines their careers, and the things they said after their loss.
That was weird.
You never hear from the Heat. Where Embiid, instead of saying completely and only, I got to do better. I got to get better players around me. It just can't be me and Harden.
He sucked.
So start there with the Heat. They're a very tough team. We know that, but here they are again in the spring, defining it once more. And the question is, how far can that toughness take them against a Boston team that they have some T-shirt like this is their year. I can't remember the phrase they got. Yeah. They went to the finals last year. They beat the Heat in Game 7. As we all know, Jimmy Butler missed the three-pointer that would have won the game for the Heat. And maybe they're that close again. The Boston's a little better. I still there must be something missing or something. The biggest talent difference in this series for the Heat is Eric Spoelstra against Joe Mazzulla. How much can coaching matter at this level when you're this deep into the finals? You got a rookie coach who's never been here, and he's made a couple blunders in the playoffs. Didn't call a timeout at the end of a game that could have cost them the game in the Philadelphia series, which could have cost them the series if Philadelphia had been gone home and won Game 6. The Heat will have better coaching. Will it matter if Boston has a better talent is what it comes to.
All right. Mike Mayo, has suggested that we ask you our standard survey question regarding Eric Spoelstra, which we have run by and gotten responses from Ron Rothstein. I believe, Sean Devaney of basketball analyst fame. I think we ran it by Grant Long.
Scoop. Yeah,
and
Scoop.
Scoop Skolnick also. Yeah, it wasn't Grant Long, but Scoop Skolnick. We thought about running it by Grant, but didn't have time. And that is this. If Eric Spoelstra, trying to figure out where he stands as a coach, if he was an assistant coach on Red Klotz's coaching staff, would the Generals have won more than one game against the Globetrotters over the years?
That's a great question. He would certainly have had them running through walls, even if they lost.
They would have been in shape. Yeah, exactly.
They would have been. You wouldn't. This when Meadowlark Lemon goes down and starts claiming his legs, someone from the Generals might have stepped off. Drive home the point that we're a lot tougher than you.
You wouldn't see some former stiff from UCLA that was playing for the Generals now. What was the guy's name? Ralph Donninger, I believe. We're running up and down the court aimlessly against the Trotters.
Would Spoelstra have taken over for Red Klotz and whipped the Generals in lots of shape, is what you're saying, right?
Well, I mean, if he was on the staff, I mean, obviously Klotz was going to be the attraction, and probably was there. If nothing else, certainly made for a great figurehead for the Generals. But if would Spoelstra be like Brian Flores? And even though they were telling him to tank games, just be enough of a presence to have them at least win one more. I mean, I think they were 5,263 or something.
Spoelstra wouldn't be able to do that. He would one game when they lost their 56th straight for that year, he would have just internally combusted, and you'd looked over there and there'd be powder of his DNA just sitting there on the sideline and no body, because he could not take losing like that. He just wouldn't. He doesn't have the ability to do that.
All right, Dave Hyde, the Celtics. I'm looking online here, and I saw 8. People speculating about the series. All 8 picked the Celtics. They've been vulnerable in spots. I mean, look, they nearly got taken out by this Philadelphia team that, you talked about how dysfunctional they are, and, how they really didn't have the talent necessarily to measure up in all positions, especially if Harden was going to disappear as he did in the crucial moments of the series. He had 2 big games, and the other 5 were kind of El Stinkaroo variety, including his typical performance in Game 7. But are the Celtics really that much better than the Miami Heat, in your opinion? And how do you see the series going?
No, I don't think they are that much better. I think there's some gear that they found at the end of the Philadelphia series, obviously, and the gear was Jason Tatum from the fourth quarter of Game 6 on.
Yes,
he was unstoppable. And okay, is he going to have that? He'll have a game or two like that. Jimmy Butler, if healthy, will have a game or two like that. So no, Boston, there's no team out there that you say this is it's not the big 3 of the Heat or the Golden State Warriors when they have their big run. This isn't there's not a generational team there. It's almost like the NCAA tournament where you say, well, anybody can win. The difference is it's best of 7 instead of just one game.
Yes.
And usually over best of 7, the better team almost always wins. But yeah, look, Boston isn't a team you sit there and are afraid of. I think they're a little better. I picked the Heat just because I'm a homer, and
that's fair.
I picked the Heat in 6 against the Knicks. I obviously didn't pick against Milwaukee, who did. But again, they've made it this far. They've redefined their season. I think they're a lot tougher than I expected. And again, Boston isn't a team that really scares you. I think they have more talent than the Heat. But again, I think with Spoelstra that he can help neutralize some of that talent.
What is the word? I know you don't exactly cover the Heat, but I know you've been involved in these series. What is the word on Butler? Because I know Knicks fans want to call Quentin Grimes Michael Jordan 1995 defensively, or Michael Jordan 1992, but he's not. The Bucks defenders are better than the Knicks defenders. And the Bucks did double him, and the Bucks did throw the kitchen sink at him, and Jimmy Butler was unstoppable. That was not the case against the Knicks. Now, maybe he didn't feel like he had to do it. He was getting more help from Bam, and the Knicks aren't as talented as the Bucks. But he did not look like the guy we've seen, playoff Jimmy. He looked a lot more human in this last series, but no one's really talking about if he's injured or not, and that's cool. But as a guy who's been around them a lot more than we have, how injured is he? Because he did not look like the guy we've seen in the playoffs the last few years, this last round.
He was very injured. I mean, okay, he missed Game 2 with the ankle, right?
Yeah.
So his ankle's hurt the rest of the series, even though he played. The question is something else hurt on him? And that was hard. That's harder to measure. It looks like he was hurting somewhere in the upper body.
His shot was weird.
When you looked at what he was doing in the final game. But the Knicks were still double teaming him, and he was smart enough with his limitations to, move the ball wherever he needed to. And so, the number one question: if Butler is hurt, the Heat are dead in the water. Everybody knows that. and this debate going around, does Jimmy Butler need to have big games for the Heat to win? Yes, absolutely. Every single time, he needs to have a big game for the Heat to win. He's their star. Adebayo came on in the series and turned out to have a very good series. Certainly the closeout game against the Knicks, and he as far as defense and all that, as we always hear, he's always there. But you need some scoring from him too. And the larger question to me this series is Gabe Vincent.
Yeah.
Okay, he's got to score just to be on the court. Kyle Lowry has had a couple games where he's come in and been lights out off the bench, and that's what they need from the point guard. They need somebody who can not just distribute, but be part of the offense too.
I used to get a kick out of when you guys in the paper, would have like 5-6 guys covering a team, and had a giant, roster in the sports section of writers and editors, and it all picked the Dolphin game, and almost routinely everybody would pick the Dolphins to win, even if it looked like it was an impossible spot. What kind of hate mail do you get when you pick against a local team, Dave Hyde? I mean, would it be safe to pick the Boston Celtics
you don't
here?
Get a hate mail. I remember walking into the Dolphins locker room once and going up to Dan Marino, and he looked at me and he goes, "Are you ever going to pick us to win?"
They don't read the paper, though. I mean, none of these guys.
You can write an opus and tear your and open a vein and bleed all over a story, give your all to it. And the only thing a lot of people read is the predictions. That's the sure thing they'll get. And so, I'm picking the Panthers and the Heat in both their series right now, because the one thing about covering these teams is now all you see is winning. Yeah. All you see is winning. So the question is, can another team that is winning beat them? I picked against both teams shockingly in their first series. I think I picked against the Panthers in the Toronto series. At this point, I'm whatever. You guys, I can't pick against you anymore.
Get on the bandwagon there. I was going to mention actually that Mike Mayo usually was the one guy that picked against the local team, but that was fueled by his desire to be despised by the people that he covered. Because he kind of gets a kick out of that. You have to go there on a consistent basis. He knew he was going to end up in the food department. So, you're still doing the sports coverage. And, it's amazing. They only remember that one thing. Marino singling you out and saying, thank goodness, you weren't Jason Cole, and talking to Gene Atkins at that point. Or, you might have been body slammed into the locker room there. All right, the Panthers, let's get into it. Hurricanes and the Panthers are going to meet. Hurricanes, a lot of people are inclined to believe that they will win this series. You say the Panthers are in there. Obviously, they're in there with a shot. I think because of the abstract nature of hockey being a little bit less structured, than basketball. You know that flaky things can happen. Fluky bounces. So even the biggest of upset possibilities can take place, which we've seen with the Bruins and the Panthers. What do you think? I mean, it looks to me like the Panthers, are going to ride Sergei Bobrovsky right into the Stanley Cup final. I want to believe that. Is it possible that comes true? That whole fairy tale story.
Yeah, if Sergei Bobrovsky keeps playing like he has, it's a done deal for the Panthers.
Wow!
He had a 940.
We could be sniffing the cup next year. I mean, we might see some Panther player out at a mall somewhere. Sipping champagne out of the Stanley Cup.
You'll be drinking out of the cup. You'll be drinking out of the cup.
Yeah. What kind of strange circumstances could they drag it into, you think?
Yeah, this is like a 96 surprise run, isn't it?
Yes.
The difference is, a few differences. They have a couple proven stars in Matthew Tkachuk and Barkov's up there, and now Bobrovsky's playing the Van Beesbrook role. But the 96 team was a bunch of ragtags they had a good year though. I think they were third seed.
They're like a 3 or 4.
This team was the 8th seed that had to do some heavy climbing in the last month of the season to make the playoffs. So and now they've got their footing. It's they beat the two best teams in the East in Boston, historically good season for Boston, and then Toronto. So how can you pick them? How can you not pick them against the Hurricanes? Now the Hurricanes evidently I haven't seen them play except in the playoffs, and they play evidently a similar style to the Panthers of heavy forecheck. So it's almost who outdoes the other in the forecheck that wins the series.
Look, you covered sports a long time. That's why we love sports. Guys that are supposed to be good sometimes will play erratic. Guys that are you're looking for them with a search warrant will come out of nowhere and rise up. And I won't say maligned because it was very well-deserved criticism for Bobrovsky getting what was at the time a high-paid goalie salary, and we would rather have seen Alex Lyon in there in the last quarter of the season, a guy that literally had bounced around the league. Did you envision this happening? Because Defoe's literally called him the guy that needs cataract surgery, and no one told Defo he was wrong. That's how bad Bobrovsky had been. Like, did you see this coming? And what the hell have you noticed differently about him? Because his confidence has grown so much, and the team's confidence in him. The defense, which had been a disaster, is playing way better now, and it feels like that's all in part to they know that they have a goalie back there that if they give him any help, he'll make those 4 or 5 stops a game that'll save your rear. Where the hell did this come from, this Bobrovsky? Because we've been looking for him for like 3-4 years.
He was that goalie when he took Columbus on a ride like this. They beat Tampa Bay in the playoffs, and he was big play Bob and all that stuff. But you're right, we haven't really seen that for a season or a big stretch or a run like this. I thought at some point, just because it happened, look at Toronto's because of an injury, but still teams. Boston switched out their goalie during that series. I thought at some point Bobrovsky would get a chance, but we hadn't seen him play like this. So and not only play like this, but he comes in. What was it, game 4 or 5 against Boston, and I guess it was 4. And he hasn't played in a few weeks, and now, all that pressure's on him. The pressure of the series going 5, 6, 7, they win. And I don't think anybody saw this run coming.
Nobody could have foreseen this, right? I mean, it's desperation being the mother of invention. All of a sudden, this Lion who is writing a Cinderella story turns into Dick Stewart, Dr. Strangelove, and on simple stops, stops that maybe even Lubie could have made, he certainly was no Joe Pepitone there with the first baseman's mitt. And they bring in Bobrovsky. And literally, I remember, even my dog's hair rose on his back. And, he's watching the game in horror, thinking, no, not Bobrovsky. We kept thinking of that scene in Usual Suspects when the Hungarian guy has got, one eye patched up and he's laying in the hospital bed about to croak, and he's screaming, Kaiser Sose! In horror, and that's how we were saying Bobrovsky. But it's turned out great. So it's been one heck of a story and a great ride. All right, Dave, always a pleasure. I'm glad you're on board with the local teams. Appreciate that. And now, will you be bouncing back and forth, covering the home games, or how are you going to handle this thing?
I think I'm covering the home games. I'm going to be writing the other ones from the Coconut Grove Bureau of the Sun Sentinel. So, and Panasonic Stadium, the great television coverage. So, there's just too much going on. It's, how about, I was just thinking about this about South Florida. In the last few years, look at the change of stars. Matthew Tkachuk comes in here and changes the franchise. He's become the face of that franchise, hasn't he, with the way he's playing and the personality. The Dolphins with Tyreek Hill. And then Jimmy Butler's been around for a few years, but and so those three teams have made big swings, and they've all hit home runs with them. It's really interesting to see how the landscape can change that quickly.
And you're going to have a good feeling about the seasons and the two teams, regardless of how they fare in this third round of the playoffs. You would think we got about as much mileage out of it as you can, and if it somehow ends up in being involved in a championship round and ultimately winning a title, it would be incredible. Dave, always a pleasure, my friend. Good stuff. As always, you're on your game today.
People.
Thanks so much for being with us. Yeah, Dave Hyde, ladies and gentlemen, of the Sun Sentinel.
So far, so good for the Panthers and the Miami Heat. Both find themselves in the Eastern Conference Finals. Both are the underdogs in both series. The Carolina Hurricanes have been strong, but the Panthers keep on winning, taking out the two teams favored to win the Eastern Conference in the Boston Bruins, who set the record for regular season wins and points, and the Toronto Maple Leafs, a very strong offensive team that the Panthers extinguished in 5 games, impressively. The Miami Heat, as you all know here on 5 Reasons, came in as an underdog to the Milwaukee Bucks, number 1 seed, the favorite to win it all in the NBA. Took them out in 5 games. Was a bit tougher versus the Knicks as the injuries started to mount, including Jimmy Butler's injuries. And Bam Adebayo seems to be hankered with something. He still took out the Knicks in 6 games. Underdogs across the board. Both of them, both playing teams that a lot of people are giving a lot of credit to. The Boston Celtics have been up and down the entire playoffs. And Atlanta Hawks team that people thought they would sweep, they lost. They beat in 6 games. The Sixers, a lot of people thought that they would take out the Sixers. The Sixers were up 3-2, and the Celtics came back behind 4.5, because it wasn't the whole fourth quarter in Game 6, actually, for Tatum. Tatum was horrendous until like halfway through the fourth quarter. He woke up, hit 3 big threes. Celtics won Game 6 coming from behind, and then the Celtics again came from behind in Game 7 and dominated in the second half and dispatched the Philadelphia 76ers behind a record-setting, the highest points in a Game 7 with 51 for Jason Tatum. Celtics seem to be finding their way, but they have been up and down. And the Heat have a lot of injuries, but have been really tough. Hyde said it. I agree. The Celtics are more talented. Heat are tougher. What will win? I hope the Heat win, as you should know by now. I'm a very big Heat fan. I think the Celtics are the lean, but to me, it's because you don't know what you're going to get from the Heat. If the bench guys, the role players, play really well, like we saw in the first round, I think the Heat will win. If the bench players play like they played versus the Knicks, I think the Celtics will win. And the other big thing is what's with Jimmy Butler. Not only he has an ankle issue, Hyde saying there's something else wrong with him. If there's something else wrong with him, that makes a lot more sense, because he didn't look like he was having struggles moving. He looked like he was having struggles shooting. He got to the point where that mid-range jumper was amazing. And if he got near the basket, he was making it almost every time. That was not the case versus the Knicks. And it wasn't Grimes' defense and their double teams. The Bucks double teamed. And that didn't stop Jimmy Butler. When Jimmy Butler wants to score, when he's in that mode, there's really no one that feels like can stop him except for himself. And we saw that versus Celtics in the finals last year where Jimmy Butler was hurt. And there's a couple games where he was either not playing or off. And then at the end, he just gutted it out. We'll see if he can do that for a series, because the Heat are going to need that to take out the vaunted Boston Celtics. Look forward to talking about this more. Check us out each and every morning right here on Defo on 5 with Lubie. Check it out each and every morning on South Florida Live from 7 to 9, The Defo Show with Lubie. Check out our national podcast, the Believe Network, BLEAV.com. Just search After Hours. Do a lot of really fun stuff there. Sports and more. We do a lot of entertainment, have a lot of either musicians or actors, actresses, and also we do sports as well there. So check that out, After Hours on the Believe Network. And here, lots of days with our South Florida content, The Defo Show with Lubie on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Hey folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.